What's up, y'all? My name is Matt James. I'm one of the vice presidents here at NOBTS and Level College, and I teach church history here. And I'm super excited that you guys are considering Mission Lab, taking a trip to New Orleans, and coming and serving this awesome city that we get to live in. As we approach that trip or thinking about that trip, we want to give you guys just some thoughts to think through how you can prepare your own heart, how you can be preparing in your city, and then how, as you come to New Orleans, how our different trainings, what we teach here at the seminary, how those things can impact your ministry at home and on a mission trip like Mission Lab. So I teach church history, and one of the beautiful things about NOBTS as a school and Christian history, we at NOBTS, our mission statement is that we prepare servants to walk with Christ, proclaim His truth, and fulfill His mission. So everything we do here at this school is bent towards that, being servants that are humble, followers of Jesus, that have devoted their lives to Christ, and they want to tell somebody else about Christ. And so that's what we do as a school, but that's also what we see in the record of church history. We see a bunch of folks, some of them their names you would know, some of them you've never heard of, but they've devoted their lives as servants of Jesus, just humble folks that want to tell somebody about Jesus. And so that's why I love Christian history. That's why I love teaching church history. We can look back to the past and realize that we're not the first generation of Christians. There have been thousands, millions of Christians that have gone before us that have devoted their lives to Christ. And as we look back on their lives, we can learn from their successes. What did they do well? We can learn from their failures. Where did the church stumble and where did the church mess up? And how can we learn from those failures as well so that we don't make the same mistakes in our generation? And that's how Christian history is helpful to us. How can we learn what's been done well? How can we learn from what's not been done well? One quick story I wanted to share with you guys, even in this short teaching time, that I think is an encouragement to us and an example of this sort of thing that would spur us on to live for Jesus in our generation. Back in the 1800s, there was a man named Adoniram Judson, and Adoniram Judson wanted to marry a girl named Anne real bad, and he wanted to be a missionary, and he wanted to sail to Burma, that's modern-day Myanmar, to be a missionary. And as he was preparing for this journey, he realized he needs to marry Anne. This is the girl of his dreams. This is the woman that he wanted to spend his life with. And so 14 days before he sets sail to be married, Adoniram marries Anne Judson. He writes a letter to Anne's dad, though, asking for her hand in marriage. And I want to read you a little bit of that letter because I think this is the sort of spirit that we see in Adoniram that would inspire him to give his life for this mission of telling people about Jesus. I hope it's an encouragement to you too. So this is straight from Adoniram's letter to his would-be soon-to-be father-in-law. Adoniram says, "I have now to ask you whether you can consent to part with your daughter early next spring, to see her no more in this world, whether you can consent to see her departure to a heathen land, her subjection to the hardships and sufferings of a missionary life, whether you can consent to her exposure to the dangers of the ocean, to the fatal influence of the southern climate of India, to every kind of want and distress, to degradation, to insult, to persecution, perhaps even to a violent death. Can you consent to all of this for the sake of him who left his heavenly home to die for her and for you and for perishing immortal souls, for the sake of Zion and for the glory of God? Can you consent to all of this in hope of soon meeting your daughter in a world of glory with a crown of righteousness, brightened by the acclamations of praise, which resound to her Savior from all of those saved through her means from eternal woe and despair?" Man, as we hear a letter like that, I don't know about you guys, but I've not ever written a letter like that. I've certainly never written a letter like that to what would be my soon-to-be father-in-law. So as I read a letter like this, I just kind of wonder what in the world would cause a man to write a strange letter like that, a letter very just frank and vulnerable and even hard to read. Here it is. Adoniram had seen a resurrection, not in real life, not with his physical eyes, but spiritually speaking, he saw the Christ, the perfect one, come and live a perfect life and die in the place of sinners on the cross. He was buried in a tomb, and 3 days later, he rose from the dead, and that resurrection changed everything about Adoniram's life, such that he was willing to give the rest of his life and go to India to share the gospel with people that had never heard that good news. And not only that, but he was willing to take this new wife, this bride, with him, and this led him to write a letter to a father that was a hard-to-read sort of letter. And so here's the question for you guys. What would it take for you to live this kind of a radical life in your hometown? What would it look like for you to come to the city of New Orleans and live like this for a week in the city of New Orleans, sharing the gospel, the good news of Jesus with a broken city like New Orleans and a lot of folks that need to hear the gospel of Jesus? Let me tell you, friends, it's the same thing. That you would be captivated, you would be in awe that this one Jesus would die in your place. He would be raised to new life. He would give you freedom from sin. And when we get that mission in our heart and that sort of vision in our heart and mind, friends, it can change the world. This is what church history shows us. There's a lot of folks like Adoniram Judson that went before us on fire for Jesus, wanting to tell people about Jesus because they had been changed by the resurrection of Jesus, the gospel story. And so, friends, you don't have to wait until you get to New Orleans to do that sort of thing. You can do this right in your hometown, with your sports teams, with your classmates, with your relatives, with your friends, with your relationships that the Lord has entrusted to you. Do you take the good news to them? Will you start even this semester as you're walking through this semester in school? Will you look for those that the Lord would be leading you to share the good news of Jesus? He's died in our place. More than that, he was raised to give us new life and to show us that he's conquered death. Will you go and take this good news to someone? And until we see you here in New Orleans for Mission Lab, be about this mission. We'll see you soon. Can't wait for you to come to the city of New Orleans and share this good news alongside of us with the people of New Orleans.